Hello, I'm Noah Julian. I'm going to ask that you find a tall seat, ideally in a chair that allows your feet to be firmly rooted into the ground. You can also feel that your sitting bones are pressing down into the chair, so that this will allow your spine to grow nice and tall, as if you have a cord that's extending from the tailbone all the way up through the crown of the head. So once you have this tall seat, I'm going to ask that you bring your attention to your breath. My teacher, Naveen Makan, often uses the metaphor that if you were playing a musical instrument, the first thing you would need to do is tune your instrument. And we can think of the working with the breath, at least tapping into the capacity of breath, as our ability to make sure that our instrument, our physical vehicle, is in tune. So I'm going to have you bring your attention to the front of your lungs. With your next inhale, see if you could feel the breath expanding in the belly and the chest. And when you exhale, you can allow the lungs to deflate so that you'll feel where the belly and the chest deflate a bit. And if it's helpful to have the hands on the abdomen and the chest, you can always place them there so that you could feel where the inhale expands, belly and chest evenly and equally. And the exhale, you'll feel them deflate evenly and equally. And for right now, that is tricky to find. Just imagine that it is possible for the inhale to expand belly and chest. Exhale will empty out in that same manner. So I'm feeling my diaphragm push in both directions to expand in the front of the lungs. You can keep the eyes open or closed for this. I'm going to have you bring your attention now to the back of your lungs. So you're going to feel your next inhale as if it is expanding into the lower back and the upper back equally. And with the exhale, it'll deflate in that same manner. If this is a little bit harder for you to perceive, just imagine the possibility that the inhale could push more backwards rather than forwards now. Feeling at least one more cycle, inhale and exhale in the back of the lungs. Now I'm going to ask you to bring your attention to the side of your lungs, as if the side waist, the obliques, and the side ribs could expand. And with the exhale, you'll feel that deflation. Again, if this is not perceptible, just visualize it. You might close your eyes and imagine the possibility of the inhale having more of a sideways motion to the lungs, or how it fills the lungs. Now I'm going to ask that you attempt to feel as though the breath could expand forward and backward equally while also moving into the side of the waist. So the mental image that I visualize is as if I'm pulling my breath through a straw into the center of my lungs and it's expanding out to the circumference. So feel as much capacity as you can in your lungs, forward and back and sides, as it fills the bottom and the top of the lungs. It's fine if there are some gaps in your own perception of the breath. Just find the capacity that is possible for you. Inhale and completely exhaling. Now I'd like to start to establish a rhythm to our breath. So we've worked with capacity for a moment, and breath in many ways will be the rhythm that guides the tempo of movement. So once we have a rhythm for breath, we can think about lining the movement up with that. I'm going to ask that you count on your right hand to start. So I'm going to divide my inhale into 4 short inhalations, and my exhale will be divided into 4 short exhalations. So that will work something like this. Where I'm filling each of the 4 up to capacity, and then I'm exhaling each of the 4. If you lose the capacity of your lungs that you just worked on, that is okay now. This is a different exercise. If you can retain some of the capacity, great. But more importantly, we're going to try to divide in, out, 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 out. If you've not begun, let's begin as you're ready. In, out, 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 out. In. And just continue on your own. Whatever tempo is right for you. If you need to slow down from my tempo, that is completely an option. You could also speed it up if you become a little more fluent. But just try to continue with these even, short, in, out, out. Next time you finish the cycle of exhales, let's release the hand and just return to a normal breath for a moment. And if you were counting on your right hand, I'm going to have you count on your left hand now. Just switch whichever hand it was. And as you're ready to begin, let's begin. In, out, 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 out. In, out, 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 out. Keep going. And again, I'm going to say the next time that you finish the cycle of exhales, you can release that hand down. You can return to a normal breath. Don't worry about retaining the rhythm. Just find a normal breath. We are going to return to that rhythm, but this time we're going to do the short inhales and we're going to slur together the exhales to return to my musical metaphor. So that means the exhale will be one connected smooth exhale, but the inhales will be that short articulated division. So let's begin as you're ready. In, out, 2, 3, 4. In, out is smooth. Continue. It can be your own rhythm, your own tempo, but try to maintain this rhythm. And then the next time you finish the cycle of exhales, you'll release that hand. And if you were counting on the right hand, we'll move over to the left. And you can begin as soon as you're ready. In, out is smooth 4. And just keep continuing to count. Try to maintain that rhythm and moving with the tempo that is correct for you. Next time you finish the cycle of exhales, release that hand. And then we're going to go back over to the right hand again, and we're going to reverse it. So this time we are taking a smooth inhalation, and the exhales will be the short, divided, separated, counted exhale. So that'll start something like this. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 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 out. Continue. If you've not begun, you can continue that connected inhale, short, divided exhales. Remembering to maintain your tall spine erect to the ceiling. 1 or 2 more cycles. And as you finish the next cycle of exhales, release that hand down. And as soon as you feel ready, you can return to the other hand. So maybe the left hand now is finding this smooth inhalation. And continue at a tempo that works for you, trying to make the rhythm as even as possible. Again, we'll move through one last cycle. And when you finish the exhales, you could release the hand down. This time you could do it with the hand or without. I'll let you choose. If it's helpful to keep a count in the body, you might count through each finger, or you can tap the hand. If you lose track of your count, I highly recommend having a reference. But if you feel that you can maintain that count throughout, you can tap a hand, tap a foot, or just internalize it in the body. This time the inhale and the exhale will both be smooth. So you're trying to maintain the rhythm that we worked with, but everything is now connected. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. And continue on your own, and if it's possible, you could slow down the count gradually with each time you're counting a number. So eventually the inhale and the exhale may get drawn out even more, but returning back to that idea of capacity, where the front and the back of the lungs are filling, the sides of the lungs are filling, the bottom and the top are filling as you feel the diaphragm expand in both directions. Even 4-count inhale and even smooth 4-count exhale. And if the eyes are closed, I'm going to ask that you open them. We're going to try our best to maintain some semblance of the rhythm that you found. And now we're going to link this with movement. So we're taking this idea that we talked about a moment ago, Every time you inhale, I want you to think that the middle of your spine, kind of like the middle of your back, your rib cage, is helping to extend your spine, where your chest is lifting to the ceiling, where you're tilting your hips a little bit more. And each time you exhale, you can round your back and you can begin to look down into your navel. You could use the hands as needed to help to pull you back up and out on the inhales. And you can sink back, and with the support of the hands, make sure you don't fall too far with the exhales. So every inhale is finding this extended spine that's referred to as cow pose in yoga, and every exhale is finding the flexed, rounded spine that is referred to as cat pose in yoga. And ideally, you are linking this with your breath with that 4 count. So I'm going to have you move at your own tempo, your own rhythm, continuing to extend and to round. And if you can keep the breath lined up with the movement, you could speed up your count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. There's no too fast or too slow right here. Whatever is the right tempo for you right now. As you do get a little more comfortable, a little bit more fluent with it, you might prefer to speed it up a little bit more. But at any point, it can also be slowed down. I want you to find your rhythm and just keep it consistent. Try not to stop as you continue to move through extended spines on inhalations and rounded spine on exhales. We're going to go for a few more. So depending on how fast you are going, we'll say anywhere from the next 1 to 3 cycles. We're going to stop after an exhale. So the next time you round your back, try to stop after that exhale. Look into your navel and try to pause right here, empty of breath for a moment. And with your next inhale, we'll come to a tall spine, just a neutral spine, not that cow pose, but just where we began. Bring your left hand across to your right knee. We're keeping the hips nice and still as we start to rotate around the hips. So you can bring that other hand behind your back, your right hand behind your back, as you look over your right shoulder. Think that your left eye could primarily lead you over that right shoulder. And then we'll switch directions. So the right hand now comes across, left hand comes behind your back, and you're now looking over that left shoulder. Ideally, the right eye is trying to guide you into the twist right here. Let's bring it back into the center. And since now you're familiar with that first technique, we're going to move right back into it. So at your tempo, you start to find inhales where you're lifting the chest and exhales where you're rounding the back. So continue on just as you did before, inhaling and exhaling. You've been here once. So maybe now you can think of the metaphor that if you went out for a walk, as you get a little bit more comfortable with the movement, you can start to move into a jog. So if you feel more comfortable moving into that pacing of the jog, you can start to move into the jog. You can even start to run. And I'm not counting anymore. I counted that first round to make sure it was even. Now I've internalized that idea a little bit. So I more just want you to make sure that the breath and the movement are lined up and that you continue to move through it as fast or as slow as is appropriate for you. And depending on how fast you're going, we'll be moving anywhere from the next 1 to 5. We're going to do that same thing we did last time, where you stop after your exhale. So the next time you're in the exhale, stop. Look into your navel, hold yourself empty. Try to pull your navel into your spine as much as you can while you're staying empty for 3, 2, 1. And on your inhale, we're coming tall to a neutral spine as we began. Again, left hand's coming across, right hand is coming behind the back, and you're looking over your right shoulder out of your left eye. Let's imagine that every exhale could turn deeper and every inhale could get taller. And we'll switch sides here. Right hand comes across, left hand comes behind the back. Hips are staying neutral as the right eye guides us over our left shoulder. And every inhale gets taller and every exhale turns deeper into that twist. And we'll bring it back into the center. Good. So we've tuned our instrument. To go back to our metaphor, we found our rhythm. Now I want to think that we're going to move through some mobility circles. I use the metaphor here almost as if you were going to play scales. If you were, again, playing music, you'd tune your instrument as the first thing, and then you'd have to know what scales are possible for whatever pieces you're going to play. So our scales are going to involve our different joint connections, starting with our spine first. We have 7 cervical vertebrae, and we're going to focus on one specific range of motion right here. Let's start with keeping the spine erect while we only bring the chin to the chest. As far as you can down, and you lift your head as far up as you can until you're looking at the ceiling. So the most exaggerated yes ever. Let's find that again, where we bring our chin to our chest, looking down at the ground without rounding any of the rest of the spine. And then we'll look all the way up toward the ceiling. Good, let's look neutral. Now let's rotate the spine. So we're going to look as far to the right as we can without the chest turning like we did on that twist a moment ago. We're just looking to the right. And then we'll look as far to the left as we can. No turn through the shoulders or through the chest, only the neck. Let's take it over to the right. And over to the left. So this was rotation that we moved through. Let's look straight ahead. And now let's work on side flexion. So instead of rotating, I'm going to drop my right ear to my right shoulder. So drop that right ear to the right shoulder. You might even pause here for a moment because you might find that you get a little more range after a moment of being here. And then left ear to left shoulder. Keeping the spine tall. The tendency will be for the oblique, for the rib cage to sink. Really try to keep it nice and tall. Right ear to right shoulder once again. And we'll bring the left ear to the left shoulder again. We're just going to pause on this second side, because we're going to connect together this movement with the first one that we did of the yes. So I'm going to roll my chin to my chest till we're looking at the ground. Let's continue to roll the right ear to the right shoulder till we're looking straight ahead at the camera. And then all the way back till we see the ceiling. And let's keep rolling through these 4 points. Left ear, left shoulder, chin to chest, right ear, right shoulder. And try to make them as connected as possible. So we started like the breath with 4 different points, and now we're connecting those 4 points and making it more smooth, more fluid. In time, you can make this even faster. The mobility circles will get very effective as you make them faster, but they also get a little more dangerous. You have to be careful if you have a lot of adhesions, if you feel a lot of discomfort. You might want to just keep this slow for today. Let's switch directions at any point. You're still tracing the same 4 points that you defined. Chin to chest, eyes straight ahead, seeing the ceiling, eyes and nose straight ahead, and then seeing the floor. Making it more connected. And in time, it might become faster if you're not moving anywhere else. You feel safe through the cervical vertebra. Next time chin is the chest, let's just finish there. We'll bring the head straight ahead to look back at the video. So release your arms by your waist. We're going to think of 4 different points in the shoulders now. Let's elevate your shoulders up to your ears, and as they're elevated, we'll pinch them together behind your back. With them pinched, we're going to draw them down. And then we're going to round them forward. We'll lift them back up. We'll pinch them back together, and you can notice now that you can start circling these 4 points that you've defined. Rounded, lifted, pinch, drawn down. Making it as connected as you can. In time, it goes a little faster. And switching directions. Still trying to define the 4 points so that you're circling the square. And then we'll release that. I want to do one more motion at the shoulders while we are here. We're going to work with reaching the arms forward and up. And as you reach forward and up, I want you to think that your biceps are trying to turn out away from your chest. And then even the shoulders, the deltoid, is turning out away from my sternum. This is an external rotation as we reach up toward a flexed shoulder position. We're going to bring the hands back down. And when they're alongside the torso, we're going to rotate the other way through the shoulders, through the biceps, so that we're rotating internally as we reach the arms up behind us into extension. And then again, we'll bring them alongside the torso. We'll start to rotate externally as we reach up toward the flexion. It's not just my hands, but it's really my shoulders that are rotating this action. And we'll bring them back down, and when we cross the torso again, I'm going to have you rotate internally to reach back behind you into extension. And we'll release the arms down. There's a lot more that we can do with the shoulders, just like the neck, but we're going to, for our purposes right now, we're going to move on. Elbows primarily only bend and straighten. So let's just work on that. How much can you bend? Can you touch your shoulder with your hands? And then we're going to extend them until they're fully straight. And bend them as far as you can, nice and evenly and fully straight. So you could simply just work on this, extending and flexing. There is a little bit of side-to-side lateral motion that you can find. It's a little tricky, but if you're able to turn this into an oval, you could think of coming in as you move out and coming out a little bit as you bend. So this might not work. It's fine if you just continue to bend and straighten, but if you're able to find the oval, add it in. Let's reverse it. So that if you were moving the circle, now it moves out before you straighten, and it moves in before you bend. And it's not a circle because the elbow doesn't have that same range of motion that we worked on in the shoulder, nowhere near it, but you can still explore what is possible there. Let's move to our wrists. The first wrist circle I would like to do is we're going to interlace your hands till your wrists touch, and we're going to keep that connection while we point the pinkies down to the ground, middle fingers to the left, thumbs to the ceiling, and middle fingers to the right. And then you're just circling those 4 points, making them more connected, more fluid. And you've gone in one direction, so we'll switch and go the opposite way. We're also going to move through another version of the wrists. So now we'll bring the backs of the wrists to touch. And we're going to try to circle the wrist so that you can get the pinky side of the wrist to touch, where your palms are facing in towards your face. And then you'll get the front of the wrist to touch, where the palms face one another. And then the thumb side, where the palms face away. And then the backs of the wrist again. So just continue moving through those 4 points. Front, thumb side, back, pinky side. Trying to get the wrists themselves to connect. Some of you will find that particularly when you get to the back of the wrist, you're only on your fingers and your knuckles. Really try to get the whole back of the wrist to connect all the way around. And switch directions. As connected as possible, both in the movement itself and the wrists. And we will release the hands. Good. So we've moved from our neck, down our shoulders, down our elbows, down our wrists. We did our breath where we started to mobilize our spine already. We've done a little twist. So I want to get down to our hips. Unfortunately, sitting in the chair, we're kind of limited in how we can get to our hips and our knees. So let's skip them, go to our ankles, and then when we're standing, we'll come back to our hips. So we're going to jump all the way down to our ankles for a moment. I'll have you lift your left foot off the ground. So you don't have to lift it as high as I'm doing. I'm lifting it high so that you could see my foot. And then I'm going to point my toes, plantar flexion. I'm going to try to bring my big toe in, and then I'm going to push all the way up until the toes are peeling to the front of my knee and the dorsiflexion to go out. And now you're tracing those 4 points. Nice smooth circles, big circles all the way around. I'm going to make it a little bit clearer. There we go. And you're really feeling this move, particularly from the ankle, from the back of the ankle, not the toes so much. I'm saying toes is shorthand, but we'll switch directions. Tracing that nice full circle and trying not to drop back in your chair while you're doing this. It'll be easier if the foot's a little closer to the ground. I lifted mine up just so you could see me, but it'll be easier if it's a little bit closer. And release that down, and we'll switch sides. So once you have the other foot up, again, you're moving into the point, you're moving in to go up, to go out. Ooh, I need to move my ankle. I can hear it popping away over here. I'm trying not to move too much through the rest of the leg so that I can really target the ankle. And then we'll switch directions. In, down, and out. Great. And let's release that leg down. So let's talk about our hips a little bit. Let's talk about how to get out of the chair to work on our hips. So I want to hinge as much of my hips as possible. So I'm not rounding my back, but rather I'm keeping it long as I hinge forward. So we're going to start here where you're folding forward. The next movement is going to be when you release your neck, you can bring your hands to your chair to help you. You're going to push down into that chair in order to lift your hips up. You're using the legs as much as possible, and then the hands are just assisting this movement for you to come out of this chair. If you did stand it up, I'm going to have you bring it right back down, very slowly bringing your hips back into the chair. And then you're lengthening yourself back up to sit. So that you could see that from another angle. Let's do it again. If you did it the first time, you're keeping your spine long as you slowly hinge your torso over your thighs. Neck relaxes down. I can use my hands on the chair to help me. As much as possible, my legs are doing the work though. Feet are pushing down, butt's lifting up, and the hands are only assisting as much as is needed for you to get those hips up out of the chair. And then as little as you need the hands, they're there to help you as you slowly bring your hips back down into the chair. Torso stays on thighs. And then when you feel your hips down, then slowly bring it all the way back up. We're going to start it the same way one last time. You're folding over, torso over the thighs. You're using the hands as much as you need to, but as little as is needed as you lift your hips up. This time, let's stay in the forward fold right here just for a moment. Let your arms relax down by your side. You can keep your knees a little bent so that your torso and your thighs are connected. And then we're going to slowly try to roll up to stand. So my neck is relaxed. I'm trying to lift my belly and tuck my tailbone so that I'm rounding up. Neck stays relaxed. It'll be the very last thing to stack on top. I'm going to have a tall spine at the very top. Now standing tall in front of your chair, we'll bring your hands to your hips. And you can lean your hips as far to the left as you can, keeping your waist nice and long as you lean your hips over to the left. We'll trace them back behind us to go over to the right, to come all the way forward. We're just continuing these circles in this direction, over to the left, back behind you, over to the right. Big circles extending in the front and folding, hinging, flexing through the hips in the back. And then switch directions. The hips are now going over to the right, keeping the waist long, back behind the left at your own pace, full circles all the way around. Okay, we'll bring that to a close. So you'll find that it's hard to get to the knees here. So we're going to return back to the sitting down once again. We're going to change the variation slightly. So this time, with your calves just a couple inches in front of your chair, you want to make sure that the chair is there, because you're going to sit as low as you can so that my butt is going down and back as my knees are going forward. So I feel butt back and down, knees forward. If you can sit down, that's great, but that's not our objective necessarily in this moment. However low you can get, you're going to start to hinge forward from there and start to paste your torso to your thighs. And then we're going to reverse this. You're going to lengthen your spine out to straighten your legs to come all the way back up. So let's just do about 3 of those. So as you're ready, butt is going back and down as knees are going forward. So I'm sitting low. When I can't sit lower, I'm pasting my torso into my thighs. Then I'm going to peel the torso up. I'm staying long and lengthened. And then I'm pushing through the feet to come up to stand one last time. Knees are going forward at the same moment that the butt is going back. When I can't get lower, that's when I paste torso onto thighs. And then I'm unhinging torso from thighs to come all the way back up. Okay, on our next round, we're bringing it all the way down. So with my feet parallel, I'm in front of my chair. It will start the same way. I'm sitting as low as I can. I'm going to hinge my torso over my thighs, abdomen paste toward the thighs. Once I'm there, I can bring my hands to my chair as is needed to help me out while I sit that extra little bit into the chair. And then I'm peeling my torso off my thighs as I sit. In reverse, we'll hinge back over. Abdomen paces to the thighs. I use the hands as much as I need to on the chair as I lift my hips up. And then reversing it to stand, where we're lengthening the spine instead of rounding. So crown of the head reaches forward, waist stays long as I'm trying to unhinge my torso from my thighs, keeping my butt pretty low at this point. Then pushing the legs up to stand. Let's do the whole thing. Butt goes back while knees go forward. Spine stays long. How low can you get? And then pace torso to thighs. You can use your hands on the chair as needed to sit the rest of the way. Unhinge torso from thighs. And then we'll re-paste torso to thighs. Hands if needed on the chair as you lift your hips. And then we're lengthening the torso, keeping the hips low to push through the feet to come all the way back up to stand. Hands can stay on the hips. If you want even more of a challenge, arms can reach up toward the ceiling. Continuing to sit while the knees are going forward, to hinge the abdominals to the thighs, to finish your seat down into the chair in order to lengthen out to come all the way up to that tall seat. Let's do one last time. You're pasting your torso onto your thighs, lifting the hips out of the chair, lengthening the crown of the head and the torso forward as you come all the way through the Utkatasana chair pose up to stand. And then we're sitting, butt back, knees forward, as low as you can get. Then we're pasting torso to thighs, sitting the rest of the way if you were not, unhinging all the way up to sit, release the arms. Let's bring your left hand to your right knee, right hand behind the back, and we will twist here. As you look over that right shoulder, hips stay stable. And we'll switch sides. Left hand comes across, right hand comes behind, and you're looking over the left shoulder. And bringing it back toward the center. So once again, with a nice long spine, we're going to start to hinge over to pace the torso to the thighs. Once you are connected, you can use your hands as is needed as you lift your hips up out of the chair. And we'll begin to lengthen your spine so the crown of the head is reaching forward. You can bring your hands to your hips, keeping your hips low as you unhinge your torso from your thighs. And then we'll push through the feet to stand all the way up with straight legs. Now that you're standing, you might want to come to the top of a mat so that your right hand can rest on the chair by your side. We're going to start to bend your knees and sit back as if you were going to sit into a chair behind you. Once you have that seat, we'll try to lean into the right foot so that we can hover the left foot in order to reach that left foot as far back as we can to a nice long crescent lunge. The right knee is going to stay over the ankle as we start to settle into both feet. Your left hand could come to your hip, and if you need the support with the chair, the right hand can stay there, or it can start to make its way toward the right hip. Once you've squared your hips facing straight ahead to the front of your mat, you can begin to unhinge as if the hip hinge is starting to open up so that you're unhinging the torso away from the thighs to bring the spine a bit taller up toward the ceiling. You could hinge forward, or you could just put that weight into the right foot to step your left foot forward and then coming all the way up to stand. We'll do the same thing on the other leg. You could take your chair and you could just drag it toward the back of your mat so that you're now turned the other way and prepared to once again bend the knees as you sit the hips back as if you're sitting into a chair. Left hand is ready for support on the chair. You can start to hover the right foot with your right hand on your hip, and then that right foot is going to step back to the crescent lunge on this side. Our left knee will stay right over the ankle. Perhaps the left hand can leave the chair and come to the hip if you have the balance. And you can begin to unhinge here, bringing the torso up from the thighs, keeping that left knee bent right over the ankle. And once again, you can always rehinge to step forward, or you could try to keep the torso tall as you put the weight into the left foot, stepping your right foot forward, and then coming all the way up to stand. Let's once again repeat it on the other leg. So we'll take your chair back toward the top of the mat. Right hand touches the chair. Both knees bend as you sit back. You're standing in the right foot. Left foot is reaching back. And we start to unhinge, bringing the torso tall up toward the ceiling. We could add the arms here if we have the balance, which would mean the arms would reach up toward the ceiling if you're able to balance it. But the chair is always there for you, especially as you're ready to step your left foot forward. And then when that foot is forward, we'll switch the chair back to the other side of the mat. Left hand touches the chair. Bend the knees as we sit back. Right foot will hover, so that right foot can step back. You're coming up as tall as is possible for you, maybe adding the arms if that is in your ability. Hand can come back to the chair as is needed. You'll stand to the left foot to step the right foot forward, coming all the way up to stand. And we'll come to stand in front of your chair. You could bring the hands to the hips once again, or if you've become comfortable reaching up to the ceiling, this is also an option at this point. Start to bend your knees as you sit back into your chair. If you can sit all the way down, you're more than welcome to at this point. And if you can't, you'll just hinge yourself over your thighs once again, maybe even finding the hands supported on the chair in order to sit all the way down before rising up to sit tall. From your tall seat, let's lift up your left foot. So you might catch onto the left shin, help to lift the foot. Some of you might find that you can bring the other hand to catch the left foot so that you can start to bring it over your right knee. If you can't get it all the way, it can just hang out in space where you're just trying to externally rotate here at the hip. And if you're able to bring it all the way, then it will be all the way up. Keeping your spine long, you're feeling that knee descend, but it's less about the knee and more about the hip. If you want even more of a challenge, you can start to hinge, keeping your waist long as you start to hinge your chest toward your shin. Let's just be here for another moment, perhaps feeling that stretch through the left glute, the left hip. And then we'll lift up nice and tall, and we'll switch sides. That foot's going to come all the way down so that we can lift up the right leg. Again, if you can't bring it all the way, you could just begin rotating out, but those of you that are able to, the foot will come all the way up and across the left knee as the right knee is descending. And if you took the extra challenge on the other side, waist stays long as you start to lengthen out over that leg. And let's bring it up nice and tall. And then we'll end where we began, where both feet are firmly rooted into the ground. We're feeling both sitting bones press down into the chair. And let's lift your right hand so that your thumb could rest on your left nostril while you inhale through your right nostril. Then when you're ready to exhale, close that nostril, open the thumb, and exhale through the left side, through the other side. Sorry, through the right side. Your thumb will close, you'll inhale through the left. Finger will close, you'll exhale through the right. So every time the thumb closes, you're inhaling. Every time the finger closes, you are exhaling. Try one more round on your own. The thumb will close to inhale, and the finger will close to exhale. You can release the hand, and then we'll switch to the other hand. So the thumb is now closing that left nostril as you inhale through the right. And then the finger closes, the thumb opens to exhale. Thumb closes, finger opens, inhale. Finger closes, thumb opens, exhale. You're inhaling as the thumb closes. You're exhaling when the finger closes. One last round. And releasing the hand. Let's come back to our right hand. And this time we're only going to switch when it's time to exhale. So that means your thumb closes to start, same way, you're inhaling. And we switch to exhale. But then we're going to stay here to inhale. And we're only going to switch when it's time to exhale. We're staying here for the inhale. And we're only switching for exhales. Continuing on your own, staying to inhale, switching to exhale. So you can keep the eyes open or you can close them. I'm just going to move through a few rounds where you continue this rhythm of your breath. You continue this sequence of your breath. Next time you exhale through your left nostril, you're going to release the hand down. And imagine that you can go right into that alternate nostril breathing once again. So imagine without the use of your hand, without the assistance of your hand, you're only taking breath through the one side, out to the other, in through that side, and only switching when it's time to exhale. Again, this might purely be your imagination, much like some of the early breathing was. But just see if you can keep that focus. Release the alternate nostril breathing and just feel the breath through both nostrils. Try to keep that focus. The inhale entering both nostrils at the same time and out both. So as the complexity gets easier, it is a little easier to get distracted. See if you can keep bringing the attention back to both nostrils inhaling, both nostrils exhaling. You can release this. If you've closed the eyes, you can open them now. And I'll just say thank you for joining me. Namaste. If you've been finding benefit with the material that I've been releasing, I'd appreciate you liking this video and perhaps subscribing to the YouTube channel. If you have the financial means to do so, I encourage you to head over to patreon.com/NoahMoves and contribute anywhere from $5 to $10 to $25 to support my abilities to continue making this type of material and also receive some exclusive content. If you can't afford to support financially, that's okay. I'd appreciate you still heading over to noahmoves.com/education and work with the material in whatever way works best for you. Thanks so much.